Thank you. That was beautiful. Good morning. Welcome to our worship service at the First Unitarian Society of Ithaca. Here we gather, nurturing our connection, seeking inspiration, and engaging the world. My name is Jens Wenberg, and I'm the Celebration Associate today. Thank you so much for joining us, whether you're a first-time viewer or have been joining us for this year-long journey. We're so glad you're with us. Our service this morning is being live streamed from our sanctuary in downtown Ithaca and will be available for later viewing as well on our YouTube channel. We look forward to seeing you at the live coffee hour that follows the service. During November, we were limited to 40 people in the sanctuary, but now the number has increased. We have 30 pew sections that hold from 1 to 4 people. Advanced registration is still required, and masks are to be worn at all times during the building. We want to invite those of you who are participating by home, by Zoom, YouTube, to join us here in the sanctuary. The weekly announcements has the procedure, links, and if you need help, please contact our administrator at the office at Ithaca, uuithaca.org for a reservation. Please check our website for more information about how to create connection. If you'd like to receive updates describing opportunities for engagement, please email a request to the office at uuithaca.org. Newcomers are especially invited to visit our website and complete the newcomer form on the home page. Some announcements. The Living the Pledge to End Racism workshop still has some openings. It starts January 8th for 6 Saturday mornings. Contact the office for more information. Our shared ministry and care teams are offering listening circles on how are you feeling and how can we support each other. Information on how to join is again in the weekly announcements. And in the future, on Christmas Eve, we will have 2 services, a no rehearsal holiday pageant at 4 p.m. and a candlelit service at 9. Please join me in saying the words of chalice lighting printed in your order of service. We light this chalice of love, the light of truth, and the energy of action. This morning, we welcome Jeff Collins to our pulpit. Jeff is a clinical social worker living in Ithaca. He was a social worker at Hospicare for 23 years, retiring in 2015. He's been engaged in Buddhist practice for over 40 years, including 4 years of intensive Zen training in the late 1980s, participating in three-month silent retreats at Insight Meditation Society in the early 1990s. He's been leading silent meditation retreats for 30 years at the Southern Dharma Retreat Center and in North Carolina mountains and at Lighton Hill in Van Netten. He's also been hosting a small meditation group in the Ithaca area for over 20 years. Jeff?
This is a brief poem by Gary Snyder, Without. The silence of nature within. The power within. the power without. The path is whatever passes, no end in itself, ever. The end is now. Grace, ease, now. Healing, not saving. Singing, the proof. I, you. The proof of the power within, now.
I invite you to please rise in body or spirit for hymn number 112, Do You Hear? As a reminder, we are asking that you sing at a nice piano or mezzo piano through your masks.
Do you hear, oh my friend, in the place where you stand, through the sky, through the land? Do you hear, in the heights on the plain, in the vale on the main, in the sun, in the rain? Do you hear, through the roar, through the rush, through the throng, through the crush? Do you hear in the hush of your soul, hear the cry, fear won't still, hear the heart's call to will, hear a sigh, startling trill in your soul, in your soul. From the place where you stand to the uttermost strand, do you hear, oh my friend? Do you hear, all the dreams, all the dares, all the sighs, all the prayers? They are yours, mine and theirs. Do you hear,
Good morning, friends. I hope that you are all having a wonderful start to this month and the holiday season. This month, I'm doing things a little bit differently. Since the weather is too unpredictable to plan for outdoor gatherings, families who signed up received a packet of materials to do at home together. In this pack are small, dated, marked envelopes, like this one, to open each week during our time for wonder, kind of like a mini wonder box. If you watched our services last year streaming, you are probably very familiar with these. I have some extras here, and I will have some each Sunday this month. And I invite you, anyone out there who would like to experience the joy of opening these with me, to come on up and grab one for yourself. They're right on that very front pew in a little basket. I have about 10 or a dozen of them, so don't feel shy. Our theme this month is opening to joy. One of the ways we use open to joy is to find our funny bones. We create joy by celebrating the power of silly and the work of whimsy. So today I'm going to invite you to create some joy by letting whimsy guide you. On that note, and again, don't feel shy, come on up and grab one if you want one. We're going to open up the little packets here. I know, aren't you Curious about what's inside? You can absolutely have one. Thank you, Stephanie. All right, once you've got it, go ahead and open it up. Now I'm going to show all of you out there and those of you at home what I got in mine. And I got this little penguin. And the little penguin is wearing a top hat and a little scarf and has a little cane. I love penguins and the adorable way that they waddle around looking, well, rather silly. So I'm going to share with you a very silly song with motions that I'm going to invite you to do with me. And I am going to look utterly ridiculous doing this. But you know what? It's okay. Because being able to let go and have fun and not care if we're singing the right notes or if we look totally absurd is one of the ways that we open ourselves up to joy. I'm going to come out now to the other microphone and teach you the penguin song. It's possible some of you may even know this or have learned it at some point at summer camp. It's a big hit there. I hope you're all ready. All right. Oop. Are we on? Yep. All right. So I'm going to invite anyone that would like to join me to stand up. The song is very, very simple. Thank you. I see a couple of you are like, ooh, do I want to join her? What is she doing today? So our song starts, it's very short. Each time we're going to say penguins attention and then penguins begin. And this is the way the little short tune goes. Did you ever see a penguin come for tea? When you look at me, a penguin you will see. That's the whole song. Let's try it together. Ready? Did you ever see a penguin come for tea? When you look at me, a penguin you will see. Now, you know it's not that easy, right? Because what's going to happen is each time we sing our little song, we're going to add a little motion. So I'm going to call out the motion each time, and we're going to do it together. And if any of this feels challenging in your body, feel free to modify it in any way you'd like. Are we ready? All right, here we go. Penguins, attention. Penguins, begin. Right flipper. Here we go. Did you ever see a penguin come for tea? When you look at me, a penguin you will see. Penguins, attention. Penguins, begin. Right flipper. Left flipper. Here we go. Did you ever see a penguin come for tea? When you look at me, a penguin you will see. Penguins, attention. Penguins, begin. Right flipper, left flipper, right leg. Here we go. Did you ever see a penguin come for tea? When you look at me, a penguin you will see. Penguins, attention. Penguins, begin. Right flipper, left flipper, right leg. Ready? Left leg. Here we go. Did you ever see a penguin come for tea? When you look at me, a penguin you will see. We're not done. Penguins, attention. Penguins, begin. Right flipper, left flipper, right leg, left leg, nod head. Here we go. Did you ever see a penguin come for tea? When you look at me, a penguin you will see. I'm tripping on the thing here. Penguins, attention. Penguins, begin. Right flipper, left flipper, right leg, left leg, nod head. We're gonna spin around, turn around. Here we go. Did you ever see a penguin come for tea? When you look at me, a penguin you will see. Penguins, attention. Penguins, begin. Right flipper. You're like, what's she doing? Left flipper. What more can we do? Right leg, left leg, nod head. We're gonna spin around and tongue out. Here we go. Did you ever see a penguin company? When you look at me, a penguin you will see. Penguins, attention. Penguins at ease. Thank you for indulging me, for joining me in a hilarious and joyful experience. I hope this holiday season and beyond, you allow yourself to laugh loudly and with abandon, that you open yourself up to the joy that it brings without worrying what other people think or how you look, and that you share the infectiousness of laughter and delight everywhere you go. And enjoy your penguins.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Whitney Wiggins, and I'm so glad to be here with you today. If you have a joy or a sorrow you'd like to have shared during the service, please email it to joysandsorrows@uuithaca.org by 9 o'clock on Sunday morning. But please keep in mind that our service is live streamed as you think about how much information you'd like shared. In a spirit of reverence, love, and care, we take time now to bear witness to some of the joys and sorrows of our community. We want to share those events that call for our prayers and support, our praise and celebration. This week, our thoughts are with young people who are struggling with their experiences in the classroom, with their friends, their family, their community, and the wider world. I'm not sure who shared this. Oh, wait. Yes, I am. Except for I can't read the handwriting. Breyer? Breyer! Thank you, Breyer! Okay, Breyer would like to share that I would joyfully like to thank Madonna Stallman and David Pierce for welcoming me to this community and help with transportation to Sunday service. We're glad you're here. I would like to share some gratitude this morning. I'm so grateful to be here in this space and for all of you who are here sharing it with me today. For the beautiful music this morning, the love and support of my small group ministry group, and the very large and goofy dog that has joined our family. For those we are holding in our thoughts, in our hearts, and perhaps our prayers, let us call these names out loud into this community, into the space of healing and hope right now. We extend loving kindness to all in our world, and let us not forget to extend loving kindness to ourselves. Today, tomorrow, and beyond, may our hands be outstretched in kindness, and let us keep showing up to our lives and each other with an open heart, no matter what. Love and courage to us all.
Get unhooked here. For our meditation this morning, I invite you to sit back comfortably, place your feet on the floor. You might want to close your eyes listening to these words. The Dalai Lama says, "Every day, think as you wake up. Today, I am fortunate to have woken up. I am alive. I have a precious human life. I am not going to waste it. I'm going to use my energies to develop myself, expand my heart to others, to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all beings.
Our meditation this month will be the meditation on breathing, which is number 1009 in the Teal hymnals. Although depending on what part you're singing, you may not even need to look at the words or the music. We will start with a drone that is just breathe in, breathe out. I will sing the melody after we've gone through that a few times, and then Emily will be singing the descant. So as always, join in on the part that feels most comfortable to you or what you're called to do this morning. You can also change parts. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love.
Each week, we take an offering to sustain the important ministries and programs of this congregation and its presence in Ithaca. The giving information is shown on the order of service. For those of you watching remotely, the text number and website will appear on your screen during the offertory music and in the information below the live stream image in YouTube. Giving to the plate is important. It is the symbol of our gratitude for this service and our ongoing commitment to support the work of this church. So please take a moment and give through either the text option or the giving button on our church website. If you're intending by a person, if you would prefer to write a check, you can place the offering in the box by the door when you exit the service. Please join me in saying the offertory words printed in your order of service. May these gifts bring about connection, inspiration, and engagement within these walls and beyond.
How do you beat the penguin song? And yet these are days that are challenging. So I wanted to bring that side in this whole discussion of joy, and starting with this poem. This is Thomas Tranströmer, Swedish poet. It's called In the Nile Delta. The young wife wept over her food in the hotel after a day in the city where she saw the sick creep and huddle and children bound to die of want. She and her husband went to their room, sprinkled water to settle the dirt, lay in their beds with few words. She fell into a deep sleep. He lay awake. Out in the darkness, a great noise ran past. Murmurs, trampings, cries, carts, songs, all in want, never came to a stop. And he sank into a deep sleep, curled in a great no. A dream came. He was on a voyage. In the gray water, a movement swirled, and then a voice came and said, "There is one who is good. There is one who can see all without hating. There is one who is good. There is one who can see all without hating." So who is that one? Maybe you, maybe the person sitting next to you, maybe me, or maybe not maybe, that one is you, that one is the person next to you, that one is me, that one in potential is all of us. A potential that we often find challenging, but that one is all of us. There's a deep, deep question that I kind of live with, and I have a small meditation group, and we've been working with this. In the face of the sick and the creep who huddle and the children bound to die of want, in the increasing velocity, you might say, of challenging stuff from, certainly the pandemic, certainly the poverty, certainly the increasing hostility that seems to become more and more the norm, certainly in the face of the great climate change catastrophe that's unfolding, and a species that's arming itself to the teeth. In the face of all of this, is there something in you, in me, that is okay in any event without regard to circumstance? This is the central question in Buddhism. It's the central question probably in all actual spirituality, where you're not just taking in the words of others, where you're actually wondering intimately in yourself. This is the central question. Is there something okay in any event? Buddhism is a non-theistic religion, in that there's no God outside the machine that is going to be the savior. There's no God outside the machine that's going to invite us into a place outside the machine called heaven, as if we ever knew what that really was. There's no paradise to retire into, no gated community of okayness to retire into in Buddhism. And it goes back right to the beginning. So many of you have heard this legend, and it's, probably largely legend, but it encapsulates the fundamental perspective of this non-theistic spirituality, theistic religion. Siddhartha Gautama was a prince, a handsome guy, back in 5th century BC India, destined to become basically a local king of a tribe, and all was kind of going well. And he kind of wondered what was going on out in the world. So he snuck out of the palace, and he saw 3 things called the heavenly messengers: a sick person, an old person, a dead body. And it wasn't like, oh my God, let me get back into the palace. There was a deep realization, oh, this is the nature of things. From this healthy young body will come sickness, will come age, will come death. And he extrapolated it, or over time it was extrapolated into a basic perception that all that comes together comes apart. All that is built up will come down. Everything that comes into form, and form is, but everything that comes into form comes in a kind of youth, comes into a maturity, starts to move into age, and then finally decay and death. This is the nature of a particular human body. This is the nature of relationships. This is the nature of a family unit. This is the nature of a culture. This is the nature of a species. This is the nature of a planet, even of the universe ultimately. This sense of being born, coming into vitality, moving over into aging, and then finally into decay and death. Is there something okay in this face of this? And this began to drive, in this legend, this began to drive Siddhartha. He snuck out of the palace, went out into the forest, which was an acceptable kind of profession back then. You go into the forest when you ask these questions. He first went into deep concentration work, profound states of stillness, seemed to answer all questions. The problem was that when he came out of those states, he began to realize the same sense of something not quite right was there. It didn't solve his problems. It temporarily did. You could say like any checking out, but this is a profound checking out and still a checking out. He then went into a fearsome period of basically self-destruction, starving, sitting under the brilliant sun, Indian sun, and just really trying to, in quotes, mortify the flesh into sort of getting out of the problem. In the depth of this, he probably begun to wonder about it long before this, but in the depth of this, he had a little memory, deep in this sense of self-abnegation, self-flagellation, or whatever. He had a memory of being a little boy, maybe around 3. It was the ceremonial opening of the plowing season, and as king, his father plowed the first couple of back and forths, and it's great celebration, all the people out, all in their finery, the oxen all decorated and spiffed up, the old gent all decorated and spiffed up, and the little boy was sat under a rose apple tree, so he could see all this. And his father starts plowing, the birds start wandering and weaving in the sky, coming down to eat the worms, the people are dancing, and this sort of great pageant was underway. And he's just watching it as a little kid, and just sort of the wonder of it all. Outside of time, outside of meaning really, just the pure wonder of it. And as at that point, 36-year-old is just sitting there in this great deprivation, he has this memory, and with it came a woof of happiness. And a moment later, there was a woof of fear. And this is where the thing got interesting. He didn't just dismiss the fear. He said, what is that fear about? What is that fear about? And as he looked into it more and more, he could see that the fear came from the fact that the happiness came out of nowhere. Just the memory, whoop, and then the happiness. Came out of nowhere. He wasn't doing anything to make it happen. Prince Siddhartha, was not driving the car where that happiness came from. It just came out of nowhere. That impressed him. So he started to sit more and more and more. He started to take in nutrition, started to sit more and more. What am I really? What am I really? The impermanence of the body, the impermanence of every moment, deepening, deepening, deepening. But what am I really? In a great stillness with that question living in him, it was like the breaking of the surface of a bubble. And there was a realization that at the core of his being, at the core of his consciousness, at the core of his feeling, was an ever-present, deathless, uncaused, unceasing presence. Later, a Tibetan monk was asked, what was that presence? A pristine awareness, suffused with warmth. This was native, basically, to what he was assembled out of. You know, we have a sense of, like, we have the brain made of matter, which most of us tend to associate with dead BBs called atoms or whatever. Matter somehow produces this thing called consciousness. Matter produces this thing called feeling. Isn't that amazing? From this perspective, actually, deep in what we call matter is this consciousness, is this warmth. The brain, and this is true if you're a squirrel, this is true if you're a bird, this is true if you're a human. The brain and the nervous system organize, weave consciousness, weave feeling. And, you know, it can have enormous evolutionary advantages, as you can imagine. But this weaving goes on, and the weaving goes on, and the weaving goes on, mostly governed by the instincts around survival and reproduction. But, you know, creatures like fish, some fish take care of their kids. That's using that sense of warmth. Some lizards, like alligators, take care of, the male alligator of all things takes care of its kids for a while. That's in a sense using this warmth, but as it gets more and more complexified, new possibilities get born. This is where the modern sense of emergence starts to happen. And something starts to emerge as this complexity grows. And finally, this kind of self-consciousness comes in. And the sense of warmth. I did a lot of meditation in Buddhism. I had a period that, just out of pure luck, I should be looking at my watch. I had this period out of pure luck where basically I could drop out, and basically for a 7-year period I made meditation my career. And a lot got very, very, very sort of still and clear, particularly with regard to that pure sense of awareness. The awareness itself started to have a sense of deepening, the sense of a kind of unknowable mystery that things seem to come from deepened. And I came out of that time not so much with a desire to escape things, something I wanted to come back into living, come back into life. But I was living with this question, does love matter in this universe? Does love matter? Does warmth matter? I mean, I'd heard that it did, but I hadn't experienced it. What does that mean? Does love actually matter? I knew intimately stuff around the consciousness, but this thing around love. And I went out and I was kind of living it as a question. You know, what would be called in Zen a koan, Genjo koan, the koan of my life was, does love matter? I knew it mattered to me, I knew it mattered to people, but did it matter in the universe? It might sound like an obscure little twist, but it was not to me. Did it matter in the universe? Years later, I was doing a different kind of spirituality that I do to this day, something called Diamond Heart. And there's more of an emphasis on love as a presence in this tradition. Clarifying your psychology is a big part of it, but fundamentally the sense of love, the beloved, is deeply at the core of the work. And I was having a session with a teacher, and these sessions go on for about an hour. And different things can happen. You can talk about troubles with your superego, your mother, or you can be in a deep, still state. And I was in a very, very still state in this session. Teacher just let it happen, like 45 minutes of basic stillness. I had a sense of a great openness, a great stillness, an intensity in my chest. And in that state that was just quietly there, for the first time in my life, it was, and I can't describe this in a way, but it was like something rose from the stillness that didn't have embodied form, but somehow it felt feminine. It rose from that stillness, and I think I knew at that moment, everything matters. Everything is made of mattering. Stories are what they are. We live in stories, but at this fundamental quality, everything is made of this preciousness, this mattering. And it came to me at that moment, this quote from Juliana of Norwich, this Christian mystic who lived at the time of the plague in Norwich in England. And plague was a whole lot fiercer than COVID. Half the people died of it, literally. And also there were peasant civil wars going on, it's not unlike the current time, plague and increasing hostility. And Juliana went into her cell and sort of deeply immersed herself and had a series of visions. And of course, she had the context of Christianity, so the visions picked up the sense of Christianity. And it was about Christ. But Christ came as she said, feminine. Christ was mother. And Christ says to her at some point, "And all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well." And it just in this moment where everything was there and was made of this wellness, all is well, all manner of things are well. And yet we live in our stories because we're human, because we can. The beauty of the stories and the fundamental quality of this wellness. It's a little bit of a poem from Louise Glurk. "Whatever returns from oblivion returns to find a voice. From the center of my life came a great fountain, deep blue shadows on azure seawater. From the center of my life came this okayness, without regard to circumstance, this warmth. One Tibetan teacher said, space itself, and in Buddhism, space is ultimately feminine. Space itself is constantly putting on makeup. And we are the makeup, and the oceans are the makeup, and the planets are the makeup, and the galaxies are the makeup. Nothing ever still, all moving, constantly shifting. I've had images of like this vast, enormous kaleidoscope, turning and turning and turning, and each scintillation being an instant of being, just turning and turning and turning. And space itself is putting out this kaleidoscope. And all in the kaleidoscope is made of wellness, and all in the kaleidoscope is on its own journey of its own life, its own winning, its losing, its suffering, its joy, but suffused with this warmth. And this warmth, this fundamental warmth, it's typically what we call love. When love meets something delightful, it's called joy. When love meets something in pain, it's called compassion. It understands that each of us is on our own journey, and yet each of us is made of this mattering. None of us is protected from impermanence because that's the nature of things, and we're all okay. If you have some sense of this, We're all okay. Joy itself, I mean, I actually think of the love as almost more like a fundamental quality of joy. Because its living nature is this in favor of. It's in favor of like a certain kind of well-being. And maybe you're living in a very narrow thing, but you're basically usually in favor of something. That in favor of can expand and expand and expand, called Maitri or Metta. It expands and expands to maybe more and more of the universe. Its qualities include joy, and here joy can be penguin dancing, fabulous penguin dancing. It can be standing right there in the doctor's office when you're getting the bad diagnosis. It can be a certain kind of arising of warmth. It can be a curiosity, it can be a generosity, it has different flavors, but the fundamental thing about it is, without regard to circumstances, it kind of knows itself as okayness. And it can move, and it has an impulse. Its impulse is to turn back in, not to get out of here, but to turn back in and participate. The great Bodhisattva vow, beings are numberless, I vow to liberate them. It's really a vow of, I vow to participate. Now and forever and forever and forever, I vow to participate in this great unfolding. Because this is about our nature, we're all touched with it. We're all touched with it. And sometimes extreme things, that come up in somebody's life can, in a way, boil away the baby fat, this rather ever-present psychological baby fat. And I'll tell you a story about a woman that I worked with early on in hospice. We'll just call her Lori. Lori was a youngish woman in her early 50s, very, very vital before I knew her. Had been a fencing coach and an amateur cellist, mother of a child, married, rather lovely woman. And she got ALS. This is Lou Gehrig's disease. This is a disease, most of you know of it. May you not know it, but may you know of it, where your mind remains absolutely clear, but the brain is losing its capacity basically to control and speak to the musculature. The nervous system is winking out in terms of that capacity. And I met Lori. She was in a wheelchair. She was getting twisted. She could still talk. One of the things that happens for most people, not all, but you lose the capacity to control your mouth, and you're also losing the windage. So you're getting quieter and quieter. In fact, for a hospice diagnosis of ALS, one of the things is your breathing capacity is going below 25%. I think that's what it was. So you're losing the oomph of air and you're losing the shaping. But you could understand her. You could understand her. And 1 week I go, I can still understand her, and the next week I went in and she couldn't be understood, and she knew it. And she was in despair. I'd never seen anything like it. Just these enormous racks of sobbing. And it's just like the water came down her face and it made these bubbles. I'd never seen anything like that. And it just shattered anything of Mr. Fix-It. Why does somebody become a hospice social worker? Usually, I want to help. There was no help here in the sense of making it better. So it burned away a bunch of my baby fat right there. I did say, Lori, this disease owns your body. Can you have mercy on your soul? I have no idea where that came from. I later learned from her that stuck in some way. She at some point got a program. This is a long time ago, so this was, I guess, a fairly sophisticated one. A computer program. She had a tiny bit of movement in her right hand. And you could put it on this flat mouse, and an arrow would go through the alphabet, and she could click. And she got pretty good at it. She could click when it hit the letter. It would start to build a word, and then it would offer her word so she could, go down and speed the thing up. But it was laborious, and yet she could speak very, very clearly. She wrote poetry. One of them was actually in the the New England Journal of Medicine. She wrote a short story, a romantic short story. This very well-loved woman was writing these things out. And I went to see her over the course of a year. She was on hospice longer than usual. I went to see her over the course of a year. She'd move in and out of the despair. I went to see her, it was October. Turned out that it was about 5 days before her death. She and I were sitting, there was a beautiful October day, and the light was coming through the window onto this blonde wood floor. And you could see the leaves and trees outside. They were moving in the wind, and you could see the shadows on the floor. And she's looking, and I'm looking, and just all quiet. After a bit, I hear her start to write something, and I gave her a moment, and I looked over, and she wrote, "This is so beautiful. I am blessed." You know, she owned absolutely nothing. Everything that she was going to grasp after was gone. She just was, with the light, in that instant, no time, just now, light, beauty, and that sense of this fundamental quality of ungraspable wealth without regard to circumstances. Great mind, daishin in Japanese, is called waking to this fundamental nature, this true nature, pristine awareness suffused with warmth. Kishin, the heart mind of joy, the heart mind that is here and is okay, whatever the circumstances. Going into great loss, you feel the loss. That's not a problem. You go into great joy, you feel the joy. That's not a problem. It's just alive. If there's nothing I can't feel, there's nowhere I can't go. That's a whole other teaching. But this kishin, allowing us to come back into the world, and finally roshin, the heart mind of a parent, the heart mind of a gardener, coming into each moment, each instant, which is all we ever have, and gardening that instant, like a good gardener, caring for it. You're part of it. The garden's part of it. The world is part of it. You do what you can to care for the moment. You do what you can to care for the moment. As the trees fall and the forest disappear, as the earth gets hotter, as people get more and more hostile, there you are, more and more an embodiment of sanity, owning nothing except the gesture of the moment. I'm going on and on. So I'm going to finish. I have all these other poems, but I wanted to finish with a very gentle one called Almond Flowers by Lori Sheck. How beautiful what is not made by fear. This almond branch blossoming in the snow, or Rembrandt's late self-portrait in which he watches without flinching how the darkness is crawling up his robes, how it will enclose him. You can see it in his face. The young man with the jaunty hat who thought he could do anything is dead. The old man he has become knows that each painting holds within its body the failure of its dream. And yet still he sits with his palette, watching the brown-red dark pooling from the place that was his hand, seeping towards a backdrop of deep gold. Years later, Van Gogh is walking through a field in winter, carrying an almond branch home inside his coat. He knows how softness must marry the cold. Dear Theo, he thinks before he sleeps, here it is very dark. I have placed the branch by the window. I don't know how much longer it will keep, but seeing it, I think there is a place inside the body that is not afraid. Do you remember how we buried our toys in the snow? When I touch the almond flowers, they are cold and white, like milk. How beautiful what is not made by fear. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff, for all those things to think about. We are going to use our closing hymn. We'll get that little slip of paper that was handed out to you. This is a hymn that Jeff requested, and Emily and I will sing it. You just have to sing the refrain. Emily will bring you in when it is time, and she and I will sing the verses.
If singing brings you joy, please think about joining Stephanie and I for our Christmas Eve chorus rehearsals on Thursdays from 7:30 to 8:30 in the annex.
As we extinguish the chalice, we gather the warmth of love, the light of truth, the energy of action into our hearts and carry it forth into the dawning day. Go in peace.